How's it going, guys? I'm Jake with Neanderthal Outdoor Company, and today I want to talk a little bit about things that I carry when I'm out in the woods. This will vary based on the activity that I'm doing, the time of year, the area that I'm going into, and whether or not I'm super familiar with the area. However, there are some basic things that I will generally carry pretty much all the time. Okay, so number one is some sort of fixed blade knife or a belt knife. This is the Mora Garberg in stainless steel. This is Mora's only full tang model. So far, it's been pretty bomb proof with the things that I've done with it. I was messing with it a little bit today. And this is in stainless, like I said. Carbon steel is great and it has its place. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so for me, stainless steel is often a better choice just because it's a little bit easier to maintain. Anyhow, so whatever knife you like, whatever knife you choose to carry, it's up to you, but I recommend always having some sort of fixed blade knife in your pack when you go out, and I would put it on your belt. Because you could always lose your backpack, but you're not going to lose your pants, you're not going to lose your belt, you're not going to lose your pockets. So a good fixed blade knife is the most important tool that you can have when you're out and about. And like I said, always put it on your belt, and as soon as you're done using it, put it back. Don't use it to do something and then set it on the ground. That's a great way to lose things. Okay, number two is I always carry a ferro rod with me. You'll notice that this one doesn't have a striker on it because the knife that I am carrying has a 90-degree spine on it, which means that it can throw sparks from this ferro rod. So if your knife doesn't have a 90-degree spine, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and take like a Dremel tool or something like that and just grind it down just so that it's sharp enough. Again, I'm talking about the back of the knife, guys. Grind it down so that it's sharp enough to scrape a ferrocerium rod, which is what this is. This is not the same thing as a flint and steel. We'll get into that in a different video. But, so a ferro rod, it's not the same as a flint and steel. This one is by Light My Fire, and it's their 12,000 strike model. This has so far been my favorite ferro rod that I use. I like orange, and same principle applies when you use your ferro rod. Put it back in your pocket, put it back in your bag, wherever you keep it, put it back there, because if you set this thing down and you're in an emergency situation, or even if you're just camping, you've now made your life a lot harder. So a ferro rod, good thing to have. It's the most reliable fire starting method that it will take forever to run out. Okay, another thing that I always carry with me are Bic lighters. I have found that Bic lighters are the most reliable, easiest to use, and most readily available, and they're tough. You know, they work every time. It doesn't take a lot of open flame, and if they get wet, you can dry them out pretty easy. That's something else we'll probably cover in another video too. But yeah, Bic lighters, they're proven, they're easy. Get a bright colored one in case you do drop it. You'll easily find it on the forest floor. I also like to wrap them in duct tape sometimes, but leave a little bit of color so that I can see them. It's just a good way to store duct tape, and I have one like that in here. We'll go over the contents of this last. So Bic lighter, again, carry this in your pocket. When you're finished using it, put it back in your pocket, okay? Cordage. I typically will carry a small roll of number 36 bank line. Sorry, there's a fly. And about, I think this is 100 feet of parachute cord. Actually, no, this is 50 feet. I apologize. But anyway, yeah. Color doesn't really matter. This one happens to be orange. I often carry like the OD green color. You know, you pick what you like and go for that. Compass. Compass is super important, and knowing how to use it is more important, okay? Doesn't really do you any good if you don't know how to use it. something that I think is probably the most important thing that you can learn how to do with this is find a bearing, box the needle, and go to that bearing. That, at least in open country, that's super useful. I recommend reading books on navigation and taking a wilderness navigation course if you haven't done so already. But compass and a map of the area. I have a map. It's sitting over there in my vehicle. So right now it's in there. But having a map is important, especially if you're not familiar with the terrain. Now, if you're going to an area that you're really familiar with, I don't necessarily think you need to have a map of that area. It's always a good idea, and plus it's fun to be able to practice your navigation skills. Steel water bottle. This is a single-walled water bottle. Okay, this is not a hydro flask. This is not any sort of vacuum-sealed water bottle. This is just a plain old clean canteen. This one's 27 ounces. I like the 32 ounces, but a steel water bottle is great because you can use it to boil water in. And again, single wall. Never, ever, ever use a hydro flask to try to boil water in. You will blow that thing up. Okay, it literally creates a grenade. I mean, the pressure will make the bottle explode if you heat it up too hot. So yeah, a good single-walled water bottle. I also will carry a canteen with like a cup insert sometimes. There's a pot in here, which we'll go over. But if you're just going to carry one, I recommend carrying just a plain old single-walled water bottle. One that's like kind of thick too and durable. That way you don't have to worry about, you know, denting it a bunch or breaking it or it cracking. This thing, unless I run it over with my vehicle, it's not going to crack. So, steel water bottle. Okay. This is an emergency bivy. This is by SLL. This is their Escape bivy. And it is a breathable bivy. And so when I say bivy, this isn't what you're probably thinking, which is like a tube tent style bivy, or one where you zip up and it's like the full shelter. This is just basically, I use this when I go camping as a sleeping bag liner. So it is waterproof, and it is breathable, which is important because when you lay in things that are waterproof, you often can't breathe in them, or your body can't breathe, so you end up sweating a lot, and when you're cold and you sweat, that's not good. That's a recipe for hypothermia. So using something like this is great, and this, you know, it's about the size of my water bottle here, and it's really lightweight, and it works great, and I have used it in wet conditions, and it'll help keep you warm. Essentially, I don't want to unroll it right now, but the inside of it is just a it's very similar to like what a high quality emergency blanket is, and then the outside is this olive drab green color. So I carry this with me in conjunction with a military style rain poncho. So these are great because A, you have instant rain gear that you can put over your pack, which protects your pack from getting wet and you from getting wet. It also has grommets on it, and you can cinch the hood tight so that you can then use it as a tarp. And it stretches out to about, I think it's about 7 feet one way and then 6 the other. I think it's 7 by 6. I'm not positive on that, but anyway, yeah, this one I think is made by Fox Tactical, and it's been okay. I'm sure that in a heavy enough, actually no, because I took it out in some pretty heavy rain and haven't noticed bad leaking. Anyway, any sort of military rain poncho like that is going to do you wonders. Headlamp. Okay, this one's by Nebo. I like this one a lot. It you know, it has a bunch of different settings. It has a dimmer switch. It has the red light, which is great for when you're around camp with other people. You're not going to blind them. And also, if you're doing any sort of thing at night, like trying to get a splinter out, you know, you're not dealing with the light just bouncing off of your skin and making you all disoriented. So good headlamp. And I always carry extra batteries for my headlamp. I like ones that aren't rechargeable. I like disposable ones because you can always carry extra and you don't have to worry about them running out in the same way. So good headlamp. Okay, first aid kit. I will go over the contents of this first aid kit at another time, but this is a super basic one. It's basically just for bug bites, small burns, small cuts, things like that. This is not a full trauma kit. I do have one like that in my vehicle, and I will bring that on bigger trips. However, for day hikes, that's pretty much all you need. And truth be told, guys, people get really hung up on having this elaborate first aid kit, you know, that's just packed full of all of these things. You know, you could basically perform surgery in the field. Well, to be honest, like, most people don't have any business doing those sorts of medical things. Like, you're not a surgeon, so don't act like one. Don't carry equipment that surgeons would carry. Should you carry something that you could stitch yourself up with if you absolutely had to? Maybe, but you run the risk of making an infection even worse. Plus now you have this closed, anyway, I don't think it's a good idea. So just carry a basic first aid kit, guys, and don't get you don't need a full EMT trauma backpack or anything like that. So let's just stick with a basic first aid kit. Again, I will go over a first aid kit in my next article on neanderthaloutdoor.com. That's part 4 of the survival kit series that I'm doing. But I will also do a video over first aid kits. So in here, this is a dry bag. This one is by Rock Bros. It's a 5 liter. It's bright orange. Sometimes I like orange stuff. I think that beginner outdoorsmen and outdoorswomen, outdoor people, should use orange things. If you can get a Mora knife that's orange, get the orange one. I mentioned not setting things down, right? Not setting things on the ground. Okay. It happens sometimes. And especially when you're first starting out, you will lose things. It's inevitable. So try really hard to get in the good habit of not setting things on the ground when you shouldn't, but just in case, orange is great because you won't lose it as well or as easy as you will things that are black or green. And again, I'm a big fan of olive drab. My backpack is that. My shelter system is that. A lot of my knives are either black or olive drab. See, I even have Rigby in an orange bandana, so we don't lose it. Humbug. Anyhow, so dry bag obviously keeps the contents of this bag dry. So, and this is a submersible one. Okay, guys, be careful when you're picking out a dry bag because you can get ones that are not submersible. They're just water resistant. You want ones that if you trip and fall into a creek, you want to know that the stuff in this bag are safe. So in there I have this pot. The bag is empty. There's 2 reasons why I keep this pot in here. First off, there's things in this pot. Anytime you have a container, it should be holding something because otherwise you're just taking up space. So I have things in this pot. Number 1 is obviously to keep the contents in this pot dry. Okay, number 2 is that if I go to use this pot to cook or boil water in or whatever, I can just take this pot and dump the contents into here without having to, put everything back into my backpack. So there's 2 reasons for that. Okay, so now, actually, I'll just set this down here. So now, in this pot, this is a zebra billy pot, by the way, and I believe that this is the, I burnt this, but I believe that this is the 20 centimeter. That might not be right. They have an interesting way that they measure the pot on this, but anyway, this is made by Zebra. They're made in Thailand. They're great pots. They're kind of the standard for bushcraft. You can see it has the bail on here, so that you could put a toggle on there and dangle it over the fire. I have cooked with this pretty often, and it's been great so far. And this thing is, it's made of heavy-duty stainless steel. You're not going to break this thing. And it has this insert that the lid goes on, and you could use this as a bowl or whatever. So in the top part here, I have another Bic lighter. This one is wrapped in duct tape, just a plain black Gorilla tape. Okay, then I have a knife sharpener. This one's made by Fallniven. It's the DC3 model. The DC4 is a little bit better because it's a little bit bigger. But you basically just have ceramic on one side for like not stropping, but for honing your blade. And then if it gets real dull, you got the diamond sharpener. So these are great. I really like this knife sharpener. I've had this for 3 or 4 years now, and it's been great. It hasn't worn out. I have heard of the epoxy wearing out on, or the glue or whatever that holds the diamond plate to the ceramic, but it obviously hasn't happened with this one. In here, the last things that are in the top is I have a Leatherman Charge. I've had this since I was 16. I've never broken it. It's never needed a repair. I try to keep the blade on this very sharp, and I rarely use it. I try to not use the blade when I'm out. I will use the fixed blade on my knife when I'm doing any sort of thing, and then this sort of thing for finer tasks if need be. But for the most part, I try to keep this sharp in case I need it for a first aid situation or anything like that. So it's got a regular knife on it, a saw blade, a gutting blade with a serrated blade on it, and then a file, and then of course the needle nose pliers, screwdriver bits, a can opener, the whole thing. I mean, and this has been great. Like I said, I've had this since I was 16 years old. So in here, I have some stormproof matches. I honestly am not a big match fan. I don't think they're bad, but they're certainly the fire starting implement that runs out the fastest and is difficult to start a fire with. So if you're gonna have an open flame source, again guys, Bic lighters, put a couple in your bag, put them in Ziploc baggies, do whatever you gotta do to keep them dry. But stormproof matches, I have them in here. They don't take up much space, so I got them. In here, I have a separate little tin, just a cheap little tin. I think I got these on Amazon. In there are cotton balls soaked in Vaseline for a tinder. Again, in the Pacific Northwest, in the wintertime, it is wet. Right now, it's very dry. The reason why I came out here today is because this is the first day that it hasn't been really smoky in my area due to forest fires. However, in the wintertime, it is very wet. So finding dry tinder is a difficult task. So if you can carry something like this to at least get your first fire going, if you're out in the bush and you're in trouble, I highly recommend cotton balls. They take a ferro rod really easy, take a lighter really easy, they take a match really easy, and keep them in something waterproof. Usually I use a bag, but I have this tin because you can use the tin to make char cloth, something that we will go over in another video another time. But anyway, so I got some tinder, got a whistle. I mean, that's just for signaling, and it's loud. I'm not going to blow it. Extra batteries for my headlamp. Keep them in a Ziploc bag, obviously, to keep them dry just in case somehow my dry bag ends up getting wet. Magnifying glass. This I pulled out of an old pair of binoculars that I found, and this will start a fire. You can use it for first aid things. It's got it's got great magnification, but yeah, I think you want something 30 power or above to start a fire with. And this is, as long as you have a little bit of sunlight, you can get a fire going with this. And your tinder's all set up and everything. But yeah, magnifying glass, great. Doesn't take up much room. They can be a little heavy. This one's a little heavy, but I liked this because it has the liner, so that you don't have to worry about the glass chipping. If yours doesn't, just wrap it in duct tape or electrical tape. I think electrical tape's a little bit better. Then I also have a little repair kit. It's just got some safety pins, some thread, and a little bit of fishing line, some paper clips. Simple, an Altoids tin, okay? And last but not least is a pocket fishing kit. I'm not going to go over the contents of this. I will do a video on it. But as you can see, it's just a little tube. There's some fishing implements in there, some fishing line in there, and it's wrapped in electrical tape with a safety pin tied to the line so I don't lose the end of the line. And I have not used this, so I will do an extensive video. I just made this not that long ago. So I will do an extensive video on how to use this and how well it works. So that will be a fun one to test. Now, things that you don't see in here are a water filter. Why? Because I have this to boil water in. Now, in the summertime, I do generally carry a water filter because A, again, I mentioned the forest fire thing. There are a lot of fire restrictions in Oregon in the summertime, yet we still burn every summer. Still, we manage to keep I try to follow all the restrictions because I don't want to be the one who starts one of these big forest fires that's a catastrophe. Okay, so water filters are great. I like Sawyer Minis and Life Straws. The Sawyer Mini is probably my favorite because it's lightweight, it's easy, it filters about 100,000 gallons. I have one that I've used countless times and had no issues with whatsoever. I did break one, so I had to get another one, but that was my fault. I stepped on it. And so I just think that Sawyers are easy. It's basically a little bag. You fill up with water, you screw the filter on top, it has a straw, and you can drink it like that. Life straws are good too, but they're limited in the sense that you can't use them in as many ways like you can use a Sawyer, but they're still great. I would avoid the big, bulky sort of filters that have like the pump system and everything. It's just not necessary, okay? And iodine tablets are fine. They make your water taste a little bit weird. But so other than that, guys, this is pretty much what I carry. And again, this will vary based on the activity that I'm doing. You will see these things in most bags that I will carry out in the woods. Most of the time I will carry these same things plus some. Every now and then, like say I'm not too worried about, well, I will bring just the water bottle. Now keep in mind, you can just boil water in this. The reason why this is nice is because you can cook with it. Now I also will bring food with me, trail mix, food bars, things like that, jerky, anything that you can do. Candy is great too. Anything that you can bring with you that will just keep your energy going in case you end up outside a little bit longer than planned. And guys, keep in mind, that's what this kit is about, is I'm outside a little bit longer than I planned to be. Now, if I'm doing bushcrafting skills, I bring an axe, I bring a full-size saw, or a folding saw, or a tomahawk, or a machete, or whatever environment I'm in, I bring tools necessary to that, okay? Also, I would bring a full-size tarp if I was bushcrafting. But this kit can get you to a point where you're able to survive a little bit. Keep in mind that there's a difference between bushcrafting and survival, okay? Survival is short term. You're just trying to get by long enough until you can get rescued. A bushcrafting scenario is a long-term scenario. However, anyways, guys, so to finish up, carry something to start fire with. A ferro rod and a Bic lighter, probably your best bet. Carry something to start a shelter with. Rain poncho, if you had to pick between these two, probably your best bet. First aid kit, you build your own. You can build a decent first aid kit for under $20. Okay, cordage. If I was going to pick between these two, I would go with the paracord over the bank line because the paracord's made up of 7 strands of smaller string. Okay, navigation, bring a compass, bring a map, know your area, know how to use those things. Sharpening implement, a multi-tool, belt knife, more important than the multi-tool, in my opinion, and a light. Ways to start, the magnifying glass, great addition, but if you were just going to pick 2, like I said, those 2. Steel water bottle to boil water in. Get a water filter too. I think Sawyer Minis are around $30, but anyway, guys, so that's that, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you could subscribe to the channel and like it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on, that'll help me out a lot. And remember to visit neanderthaloutdoor.com to check out our merchandise and our articles about how to stay safe and educated in the outdoors.